Okay, so we've already run over the basics of how this is going to work, so let's dive straight in and actually start to do this. So we've already looked at choosing a file and submitting a file. We know that we've got our image ready to go. Let's go ahead and process it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of init.php. We don't need that anymore. And here is where we're going to do the processing. So within here, let's go ahead and check whether the form's been submitted and this file or this profile, let's go here, this profile field is set. So if is set is equal to true, what is set? Well, it will be $_files, and in here it will be the file name, profile. Now if it is set, I'm just going to echo OK, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this. So we refresh, we click submit, OK. We've not got any file, but it's still set, so we need to do some further validation to make sure that the file has actually been chosen. Regardless of whether we choose a file, we get this OK message come up, which is absolutely fine. So here we can just quickly validate this. So we're going to say if, in fact, let's do this a slightly different way. Let's go ahead and, no, we need to do that. So if $_files, profile, and here we can choose the name, so the name of the file. And what we can do is say empty is equal to true. If it's equal to true, we'll go ahead and just echo out, please choose a file. Otherwise, we want to continue and we want to validate the extension, things like that. So let's just go ahead and check this out. We'll just say OK. I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Please choose a file. So I choose a file, click submit, and it's OK. So we've validated that part, and now we need to validate the file extension to make sure the user's uploading a file that we allow. So I'm going to create a variable called allowed, and this is going to be an array of extensions that we're going to allow. So this is going to be JPEG, JPEG, GIF, and PNG. So we know that we've got this allowed array, but how are we going to compare this with the user's choice? Well, since the file is not the file chosen is not empty, i.e. the user has picked a file, we can now start to create variables of the properties of this file. So for example, file name. Let's just pull this down slightly. So file name is equal to, well, we've already established that this gets the file name, so we can just go ahead and copy that down there. We've also got file temp. I'll just call it temp. Now what this basically is it's where the file is temporarily stored. So in this case, it's tmp name as the array value, if you like. Now we do have a file size as well. That's just like size in there. I'm not going to be doing this, but you can go ahead and try yourself. Add a comparison in there of the file size if you want a specific file size, or if you want this limited. I'm going to assume here unlimited, so the user can pick, whatever file size they want, but it's advisable to go ahead and limit the file size. But I'm going to leave that out here. So we've got the file name, the file temporary location. What we can now do is extract the file extension from the file name. So just underneath file name, I'm going to say file extn. Now this is going to be equal to something. Well, file name contains the extension at the end. So if we upload the file that I was looking at earlier, beginner.png, this would be beginner.png. Now if I exploded this by a full stop, it would give me two elements, beginner and PNG. Now this might be hard to understand, so I'll go ahead and do this like this. I'll explode by a full stop, and I want to explode file name. Now what's this done? Well, let's go ahead and print this out, print R in fact. This will just show us the contents of the array that's been generated by the explode function. So I'm going to print out file extn. So let's go ahead and pick a valid file. beginner.png, submit. Now we've got an array here. The first element, the 0th element, is beginner. The first element is PNG, or the second element, whichever way you look at it. So now we know that this is a PNG file, and it'll work the same for JPEGs and anything like that. So we can access this element. The only problem here is we never know that this. We can assume that it's a something dot something file. But for example, if I was to change this to beginner dot image like that, and I was to upload that, we've now got 3 elements to the array, and the last one's PNG, so we never know what element this is. So basically we're trying to extract the extension. That's the idea of this here. So what can we do to this? Well, we can use a function called end. What this will do is it will take the last element of the array. We already know what the first element of an array is, it's 0, but the last element's, always going to be the unknown. It could be anything, because an array, it's like a stack, it'll add onto it. So we've got end here. So now what we can do is just echo file extn, and this will give us the file extension. So choose file, choose this, regardless of how many dots in it, and we've got PNG here. Now we've got another problem, and that other problem is, let me just go ahead and open up this image, or not open it up, but rename it. In actual fact, I don't think I can do this just because of the way that my operating system's set up. Anyway, I'll explain. Some files have a capitalized file extension, which is very annoying, because when we're comparing it against these options here, we could be comparing something with capitals. So I'm going to say str to lower, and since end has generated a string, we're just basically converting a string to lowercase. So even though file extension could be uppercase, it'll always end up as lowercase, and therefore it will always match something in here, or always be able to be compared properly. Anyway, let's move on. So I'm going to create an if statement here. Now we're checking if this file extension is allowed, and we're going to use the inArray function. If this is equal to true, that means we are doing something right, so it is in the array. So I'm going to check file extn, and I want to check in the second parameter if that is in allowed. If it is, we can go ahead and upload file. Otherwise, we want to, I'm just going to output a small error message. So echo incorrect file type. And then we could say, we could either loop through this array and output the ones that are allowed. So we could do this, allowed, and then we could say for each allowed as ext echo ext. In fact, there's a better way to do this. We could echo implode, and we want to implode by a comma and a space, and we're choosing allowed. There we go. So what this will do is, if we were to choose a file like activate.php, incorrect file type allowed, JPEG, JPEG, GIF, PNG, and let's just pop a space in there. So basically implode's done the opposite of explode, and it's just sort of joined the elements of the array with a comma and then a space afterwards. So it now looks like that. Okay, perfect. So if we choose a correct file, it does nothing at the moment, because at the moment we've just got a comment here, but this is going to actually upload the file. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to create a function that's going to handle this, and it's just going to be called something like change or upload user profile or something like that. I'm just going to call it user profile image, and this is going to change it. In fact, let's say change profile image. Now we need to work out what parameters we need to pass through to this. The first one's going to be the user ID. We'll modify these variables just a moment. We'll just map this out here for a second. So we've got user ID. We also need to pass the file's temporary location, and that's it. And then we can just store this new file. So I'm going to say file temp. So we've already got a temporary location for the file, and this is being passed through to this change profile image. The user ID we know comes from session user ID, unless, I'm not sure if we created a variable for this. It's going to core and init, and yes, we've got session user ID. So let's go ahead and copy that, and we'll just paste that into there. So we are passing the user's ID, which is helpful because we need to update this for a unique user. We're passing the temporary location of the file through. We can go ahead and upload this file, and then we can insert or update this user's row in the table, and then point that to that file location. So relatively straightforward. In users.php, in the next part of the tutorial, we are going to be creating this function, and that's it. Just uploading the profile picture. The user has a profile picture.